Hello and welcome into Saturday night's edition of the Arizona State Sun Devils Insider Podcast. My name is Kevin Hicks, as you all know, and I'm your lead beat writer for the Arizona State Sun Devils on SI. And I'm joined once again today by the great Tanner Capolini, who was at the game, covering it with me today. 25-23 victory over the West Virginia Mountaineers, and a game that shouldn't have been as close as it ended up being, but it eventually the all I can say is that the culture that Kenny Dillingham has built up at Arizona State really shone through at key moments of this game, and that's really the main thing that I wanted to talk about in today's post game show. Tanner, how are you doing tonight, and what are your thoughts on this gritty win from the Sun Devils?
Hey Kevin, yeah, it's good to be on here. My prediction was close here. I had ASU winning, 27-17, and it looked like it was going to be that way for a while. They ended up winning 25-23, so not that close at the end of it, but close for a while. And I do think talking about the culture is a good idea because this is kind of a weird game to analyze. There was moments of the game that went kind of how we expected, with ASU playing very well in the offense and defense, but then there were some really outlier moments. I think the thing with the culture that impresses me is kind of just the team rallying behind Sims. It really doesn't feel like Sims is a backup, and I think I said that with the Iowa State game, but it really feels like he's a starter, right? It feels like he's the main man. It feels like kind of the thought of Sam Levitt in a way is not hanging over this team. I think is a good way to put it. I think the teammates miss Levitt. Levitt is missing being out there, but this team has kind of embraced Sims as a starter. I think that's a good way to put it. And I thought the offense looked very competent today. I thought the passing game was nice, even without Jordan Tyson. I think with Sims that this is a quarterback who can put together a good game plan. So I was just really impressed with kind of Jeff Sims this game. I was very hesitant to see how he did, and he played well.
Yeah, great points, Tanner. Going into that Jeff Sims point, I kind of feel like he's really the culmination of the emphasis that the Sun Devils have put on staying connected, going out to play for one another, next man up, because Sims is really the next guy in line of a long line of guys that have really stepped up as the next man up this season. Xavier Alford's been out since game 3 this season. He's out for the year. Sam Levitt, as we said, is out for the year, as we all know. Cyrus Fiaseu has been out for the year for well over a month now. Jordan Tyson apparently is dealing with some kind of tear in his hamstring, according to Dillingham. So this is a team that is very banged up, especially compared to last season. And the fact that Jeff Sims can go in there, he had a QBR of 75.4, which means he had a very strong all around performance. He was efficient, he made good decisions. Uh, Last 3 games he's played in, including the Houston game, only one interception against 5 touchdowns through the air. And he was still an effective runner as well. He wasn't as effective as the Iowa State game, clearly, but he moved the chains on several occasions. He was a more effective runner than Raleek Brown was, and that's saying quite a bit. Um, and I was really impressed with Derek Eusebio. I think that he is another example of a guy that is really the culture, uh, kind of, I guess, a symbol of the culture that Coach Dillingham wants to install. Him and Sims obviously were both largely playing with the twos over the summer, and now they're both in major roles, and they're both really shining in these opportunities that they've been given. Uh, and yeah, that's really my major thought in terms of the roster.
Yeah, I thought the receivers played well. John Moss had a couple nice catches, which was good to see. Shimon Mateer balled out at tight end. I thought the O line also played really well. That's something that I know ASU fans were kind of a bit unsure about, but I thought, played well in this game. I thought that the offense overall just looked smooth. It took them a bit to get into it. This game was really weird because being there in the first half, the game was kind of very choppy, very uneven. It was like, oh man. But then the second half kind of flew by. So, like I said, just a very different game. But yeah, I thought the offense operated well. And kind of transitioning to the defensive culture, it's definitely interesting because he gave up two big touchdowns, which is not great. But they played bend but don't break for a lot of the game. And I feel like that this is more of a good performance by the defense than a bad one. Like, yeah, you would like to fix some stuff here, but I thought the D line played well. I thought the secondary, Keith Abney was awesome. He was really kind of going at it today, being that X factor. I thought the linebacking core was great. I just thought the defense played really well overall. Yeah, there's some stuff that could have been better with the big plays, but if we take off those big plays, what West Virginia only has 10 points or something like that. It's that's a pretty good amount. So yeah, I thought the defensive culture was good. I thought the team overall looked like they had energy. I was very kind of with them taking the week off of practice about a week ago. I know you said they did practice a ton, but they looked energized. They looked good out there, and that was nice to see.
Yeah, that's a great point with the defense. It feels like it's the case for them pretty much every single week. Outside of two or three explosives that they give up, they are typically very stout. They don't give up very many yards per play outside of the big plays, and that's kind of what skews them. That's kind of what leads people to believe that they're more of an above average or average defense than a good to great defense. And that's unfortunate because we know the amount of talent that's on that defense and the job that Brian Ward has done this season over the last 3 seasons, really. Uh, and I really like the Keith Abney point because I feel like he is one of those symbols of the culture that is uh, in place in Tempe now. He was one of the very first commits to Kenny Dillingham once he took over as head coach. He was committed to Utah State before Arizona State, and they got in on him. He committed about 3 weeks after Coach Dillingham got hired, and the rest is history. He's developed into an absolute superstar of a cornerback in the Big 12, despite his frame that many look at and they're like he's more of a slot corner because of his size than a boundary corner. He, you wouldn't think that he lacked any size with the way he plays. Just incredibly sticky in coverage. He very rarely commits penalties. Uh, Secured the game-winning interception, and he even said he telegraphed the interception. He said he made eye contact with Scotty Fox, and he was like, "I kind of had to play it off and act like I wasn't smiling when I knew what was coming." So I kind of think that he's a microcosm of the grit in the battle that Kenny Dillingham wants his team uh, to really abide by week in and week out, and I think that that's a very, very good thing. I think that this game, even though it wasn't pretty at the end, it's really a sign of what's to come for Arizona State.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about Abney and just kind of the impact he's had. And like I said, I think these final three games, the Big 12 hopes are still alive, especially with the U of A Cincinnati game. But I've always said I think it's important to see kind of where this team's at next year. I'm kind of 1 foot in next year, 1 foot in this year. And I think that's just good to see this team kind of just still playing well, that the infrastructure's here for, years to come. And I think that was well assured today. I think one thing is the special teams, they have their issues punting, but Jesus Gomez has that kick that kind of wins them the game indirectly. So, I feel like this was a game, like ASU's really only had one kind of blowout win. It was a Texas State game. Everyone's been close, but this team's able to kind of rebound, right? It's kind of like, a boomerang. You sometimes fall down, but then they get back up. So, I think it is definitely sustainable. I think that due to injuries, it's been kind of that way in some of the scheming. Hopefully, that can get more ironed out next year. This team has more decisive wins, but it's kind of nice to see. Next man up, this team still has that mentality. I think that's just something Kenny Dillingham has, is that he just is his coach that can have that kind of bounce back mentality.
Yeah, that's a great point. And going into playing right off of your point, I kind of wanted to wrap things up talking about the culture with the culture amongst the coaching staff, and that next man up is really within the coaching staff as well. In the post game press conference, Dillingham attributed that 2 point conversion that they received once they went up 13-3. It was, I believe, it was a fake kick. Threw it to a wide open Cameron Harpole in the end zone for the 2 point. He gave Jack Nudo, who is the special teams coordinator, on an interim basis while Charlie Regal is on a leave of absence. He said that it was all him. He said that Nudo recognized something on film in terms of weakness in West Virginia's formation on point afters in certain scenarios. He said that he showed him the film, proposed drawing up a play for that specifically, and when the moment arose, he let him know once they went up 13-3, and he's like, "Let's do it." And I believe that that was probably the single most important play of the game when you look back at it, because, like Dillingham said, there were it drastically changed how both teams approached the game strategically. West Virginia could never get ahead without scoring two. Actually, no. If they scored 2 touchdowns, they'd have to go for two themselves, I believe. To Yeah, they'd have to go for two to get ahead, 18-15 in that scenario. They could never get ahead by more than a field goal by that means. So that put Arizona State in a lot more control than they would have been otherwise. Uh, it's very confusing when you go through every single intricacy of the game plan because of that, but ultimately it put them in position to get that 25-23 lead late in the game, uh, and that's all you can ask for. That's an extremely astute approach from Jack Nudo, who isn't even this full-time special teams coordinator. He's interim. That just shows me personally how interconnected, how collaborative, and how just prepared and competent this Arizona State coaching staff is on top of the roster that they've built. And I think that it's here to stay as well. I don't think that anything is changing there anytime soon.
Yeah, it reminds me, Dillingham and Levitt were talking about, I think a couple of weeks ago, that they watched film, like with other teams, like not like the teams they're playing, but like other college games and talk about decisions. So that reminded me so much of that. And, credit to, Coach Jack for coming up with that. I think it shows that this team thinks outside the box, which I think is really well needed. And I'll kind of wrap this up into my final thoughts here. But, it was a game that definitely had its ups and downs, but the ups definitely were great, right? You had the Malik Brown receiving touchdown, which was so cool. That was probably my favorite play of the game. Tremont Mateo found the end zone. It was just overall a game that you really saw ASU kind of battle through. I do want to pull this up. I saw this game summed up perfectly because, like I said, this was probably one of the more difficult games to sum up, kind of in a synopsis of what happened. But I do want to find it here. Let me see. It was by Brad Denny, who writes for ASU Sports. He's someone who's been with doing that for a while, and I believe he said something of the likes of, okay, yeah, ASU was in total control, then they weren't, but they were never rattled. And I think that's just kind of a good way to describe this game. There's moments where things were not going ASU's way, and there's moments where it wasn't, right? It was a very kind of up and down game, but the team always seemed like their kind of focus wasn't broken. And there's that one play where, West Virginia had the touchdown, the 3rd and 27, which would be a momentum killer, but ASU jumped back into, and I think that's just credit to this coaching staff, this culture that this team's going to fight. Things are going to happen that don't go their way, but they can rebound, and I think that just kind of is a big building point and kind of a big factor. So I'll leave it off to you, Kevin. But yeah, fun to be at the game, and 2 more games, and I'm excited.
All right, yeah, Tanner. I think that that's a great point to really leave it off on. The culture in Arizona State is going nowhere. Kenny Dillingham is going nowhere. and Arizona State is going to be a factor in the Big 12 for many, many years to come, regardless of what happens to end this year. And Tanner, thank you for joining me on this show. Thank you for joining me at the game today. It was a great time, great football, and we have one more home game this season, one more road game before the bowl game, and potentially a Big 12 title game in between those. So stay tuned with Arizona State on SI. Read both mine and Tanner's content whenever you get the chance to. And thank you so much for all of your support. And I will see you with a new episode tomorrow.